why do so many brilliant women, because you were just talking about this, stay trapped in that perpetual potential?
Part of it is you have to look at what potential actually is, because so many of the women that I support have incredibly high expectations of themselves, really high. And so they feel as though their potential is not realized. So one of the first conversations is about, could we lower the expectations slightly? Because you listen to the goals and the way that people speak to themselves, and it can be quite scary. But from an ADHDer's perspective, see that the most telling pieces that keep us in that feeling of perpetual potential is that we have our eyes outwards and we're looking at what everyone else is doing, and we are doing the comparison thing. So you've just gone and smuggled somebody else's goals into your world without actually going, I want that, without actually checking in and saying, does this actually suit the chapter of life that I'm in? Does this actually look as though it's something that's going to be sustainable? So the first thing is to make sure that you have the right goals for you. And the goals you had 5 years ago are not necessarily the same as are going to fit you now. So there's that. And there's also, I was fascinated by insects and dinosaurs and all these sorts of things. And now I understand the concept of hyperfocus. And an ADHDer who finds something that they are fascinated by, we can literally disappear down a tunnel into that fascination for hours. So there's lots of, I understand now, sparkiness that would feed it, as well as, unfortunately, a family propensity, which I did not know. I wasn't told. And now I've found out in later years how many people in my extended family had problems with alcohol. So there's a genetic component as well.
Today I'm joined by Angela Raspass.
Hello, thank you. I'm absolutely delighted that we're going to have this juicy conversation.
Yes, indeed. Angela, you were diagnosed with ADHD at 53, as I mentioned just a while ago. What was the immediate thought that hit you in that moment?
It was definitely surprise. Like, there's an actual condition that explains and contextualizes so many of the things that's happened in my life. It came after my daughter's diagnosis at 19, and this will sum it up so well. I said to her, I've been reading about all the information from your diagnosis, and another friend thinks that I probably have ADHD. And she went, oh, duh. Why do you think it took so long for me to get diagnosed? You thought I was normal, and it's all because of you. And it was, she didn't say it in any sort of a nasty way, but it was just like, wow. It was a wow surprise moment. It really was.
So late diagnosis brings a mix of relief, but also grief, right? So
Absolutely.
What were you grieving most in those first few months?
I think the biggest thing, like, I actually put together a very simple late diagnosed cycle that you go through just after I had observed what I'd experienced and felt. It's very much like the classic grief cycle. You're absolutely right. So it's surprise, and then I felt a bit of relief. It's almost like, there's reasons. I'm not just, flighty or scatty or incapable or, not living up to expectations. There's some reasons, some actual neurological and systematic reasons. And then I got sad, definitely got sad. And the thread of that sadness was the story I was telling myself. Everything would have been better if I had known earlier. Everything would have been better. So then I got angry. It's just like, why was this not discovered earlier? This is ridiculous. 53. And I was a bit outraged. And then you need to move into acceptance. It is what it is. This cannot be changed. And then moving into adjustments. Well, now that I know, now that I have this knowledge, what changes am I going to proactively and intentionally make as a result of this new knowledge that I have? Now, that sounds nice and linear, but it wasn't linear. I still jump all over the place. But those are the core emotions that I was going through and still go through. Depends on the day.
What do you mean by that? I'm curious, Angela.
There can be frustration that comes in, like if something's not going my way, or if I've forgotten to do something, or if I've not been persistent enough with something, because our nervous systems are wired in a way that novelty and interest and urgency are things that actually get us firing as opposed to things that are important. And I can still get angry at myself and angry at not having learned how to handle certain things because I didn't have the knowledge. And who knows how many times I've lost my car keys. We won't even go there. So there can still be some crankiness there, and there can still be some sadness. But I've noticed that those no emotions are negative. Okay. They all, as I'm sure you've felt this as well, they all have information to share with us. But some of them feel a bit more jagged around the edges. And so when I'm feeling a bit more raw, I've noticed that most often comes about when I'm in comparison mode. I'm comparing where I think I should be. I'm comparing myself to others. I'm comparing myself to the expectations or how the market or the world says I should or must do things. And that's when I notice the emotions have more of those jagged edges. If I can move away from that and give myself space, so not fusing with the emotions, noticing them and then giving myself space to actually look at them and challenge them and question them, then I can usually move back into a better space. But it's not perfect. It depends on how well I'm also traveling. Have I slept well? In ADHD land, we talk about, and it's in recovery world as well, the halts. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, tired, sad, hormonal? We need to know, we need to look at that context, because if I've not slept, haven't eaten, missed my medication, and drinking nothing but Diet Coke and I haven't had any water, pretty sure I'm going to be a little bit more jagged than if I've been to a yoga class and I've had 9 hours sleep and I've had a healthy breakfast. So there is things around you that are going to contribute to your ability to respond rather than to react. So that will have a big impact on the way that I look at myself in the picture of diagnosis and the challenges that it can bring up.
From your perspective, what actually is ADHD, and what might be those symptoms, coding symptoms, before you might be diagnosed?
Well, there is an expression that you've met one ADHDer, you've met one ADHDer, meaning that we all, the impact and the way in which it shows up is different for everybody. It's a scale, because at its core, it is executive functions are compromised in some way. So things like your ability to regulate your emotions, your ability to stay and retain focus, your ability to switch between tasks, your ability to not be distracted. There's lots and lots of different pieces. And it really outrages a lot of us when we hear the expression. I say we because I've had this conversation with lots of late diagnosed women. Oh, everyone's a little bit ADHD. Yes, we can all lose our keys, but it's a matter of degree of the impact. The best description I can give you from a business lens, because that's the lens that I look at it through. I'm a strategist and an ADHD business coach and mentor. And I used to run a business network as a part of my marketing agency. And there was a woman who came to the very first event that I ever ran. Her first event she'd ever been in networking. She just started a business. 14 years later, she has that same business and she has just gradually built it in the same direction, doing the same things and just deepening and expanding that business. And she has a very successful business and she has literally no ADHD at all. And then I contrast that with myself, who on the outside looks as though my business is good, and I have had great years, but I have gone in so many different directions. I would have had probably 24 different services within the time that she's just built the one. My desire for novelty, my curiosity, my leaping off with new ideas takes me down all sorts of paths, and she hasn't. Her business has continued in that growth way, where mine has been far more scattered. My husband used to say, "Why is it that every year you want to reinvent your business?" And I didn't really have an answer, because that's who I am. But now I have an understanding. Yes, it's who I am, but there's something else driving it. And it's that huge desire for variety, which is a classic ADHD trait when you are the combined type like me, because there's different types. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of an idea.
What was the process? You could describe the fact that having ADHD, and how do you identify with it?
Okay. So when I was reading the symptoms, and of which, you can Google all over the place and find them, I
Mhm.
disagree with the overall description that it is an attention
That's why I'm
deficit.
asking.
It's not a deficit of attention. The
Yeah.
difficulty in, regulating that attention, because there's many things that can
There is a
take it.
distinction.
Big distinction. A lot of us think that it's very badly named. Um, there was massive curiosity. I am definitely powered by curiosity, as a lot of us are, I believe. And so going down the pathway of exploring a diagnosis was interesting, really interesting. I wanted to find out all that I could. And it led me backwards, because one of the things that you need to do is show evidence that these traits were evident before you turn 12, which meant I needed to go back and find school reports, which was very difficult because my parents are deceased. But I did find them, and it was really interesting because I did very well at school, like academically.
Mhm.
But for the first time, I looked at the descriptions of the behaviors. Angela needs to realize there's other people in the class. Angela needs to think more carefully when she's out in the playground. Angela needs to pay more attention to detail in like when Angela's more organized, she'll do better at maths, etc., etc. I'd never noticed that. I'd only really remembered many years later the marks. And so all of the evidence was there about the distractibility that was very much a part of my makeup. It also helped me understand I had very horrid bullying when I was in late primary school and then going through into high school. And contextualizing that now, I was a bit odd and I was pretty intense. I was a classic.
All are though. I mean, to some degree at least. I mean,
I was fascinated by insects and dinosaurs and all these sorts of things. And now I understand the concept of hyperfocus. When someone, um, an ADHDer who finds something that they are fascinated by, we can literally disappear down a tunnel into that fascination for hours. Hours. And that's what I was doing. I would walk to school reading a book, literally walking the 3 kilometers to school with a book in my hands. A lot of other kids thought I was very strange. And I had a lot of bullying, which I was mystified by. Because this is the thing, when you have something like ADHD and it's undiagnosed and not dealt with, you don't have any clue that the way you are feeling and responding to the world has any unusual reasoning underneath it. It's just who you are. And so when you find that the you who's out there in the world, this is my experience, I can't obviously speak to everyone's. When you find who you are out there in the world as is unacceptable to a lot of your peers, especially at a time of life when you desperately want to belong and to fit in, the only explanation you've got is, well, it must be me. I'm weird, I'm wrong, I'm too much, I'm all of that. And that starts to chip away at that feeling of self-worth. That really should you want that to be built during those formative years, not chipped away at and eroded. So it can have some pretty long-standing impacts when you don't have the understanding as to why it is that you react and respond to the world in certain ways.
when you ask for evaluation, what actually is the process to do that?
Yeah. Well, here in Australia, the first step is to get a referral from a GP, a general practitioner, to a psychiatrist, because only a psychiatrist can actually do the diagnosis.
In Denmark, yeah, the same.
Yeah. There is a significant questionnaire, very, very detailed questionnaire that you have to fill in, and you need to have people close to you fill in. It was supposed to be a parent. That wasn't an option. My husband completed it. So it's his observation. So you're looking, it's like in corporate world, 360-degree feedback. Well, it's sort of like that. And then you are in conversation with a psychiatrist and you're going through like, what does your life look like now, and why do you think that this might be you, because we're investigating. And so very long conversations. Mine was slightly complicated, and it's something that I know we're going to talk about, so I'm very happy to show it now. I have addiction in my background, and I'll be 20 years sober in November, so it's very firmly in the background. But the psychiatrist was concerned that perhaps the mixed up, sparky mind had something to do with damage from the addiction, from the substances. And so I had to have another meeting with another person who specialized in that area, and happily decided, nope, nothing wrong with your brain. It's just sparky, as I like to call it. So that was another hoop that I had to go through. Once they had made the decision that, yes, clearly the impact that my type of wiring had on my world proved, I guess, to an extent that I have ADHD, then we talked about, well, what are we going to do now? Are we going to go, because there's many ways in which you can work with it. And I did choose medication as one of the things that helps me manage my ADHD. And again, you can only have that medication prescribed through a psychiatrist initially.
Everyone who has ADHD take those pills, or they have
Not
to?
everyone. No, not everyone. It's very much a choice. And there's
Okay.
plenty of people who don't want to, and that's absolutely fine. There's some people who cannot, people who have thyroid problems and things like that. So it's very individual. There's also many different types of medication. So I did my research because now I'm hyper focused. My new hyper focus and interest is ADHD. And so I did lots and lots of reading and listening and finding out. And I made the choice for what is called a long acting stimulant called Vyvanse. We tried different amounts in terms of the milligrams and found the dose that works really well for me. And so I've been taking that now for over 3 years, and it has made a significant difference in concert with, I had ADHD coaching. I also worked with a narrative psychologist because there's trauma in my background as well. So there was a lot of things to work with.
Wow.
And those things combined, as well as my own education and finding my tribe, like actually spending time with other ADHDers, and that identification is very affirming, mean that, there's no perfection here, but there is a deep acceptance, lots of adjustments, and I still love my brain. I wouldn't want to change it.
I'm trying to really, truly create literally an ecosystem. People have to focus on prevention.
Well, one of the realities that I absolutely acknowledge is the privilege that I have, the very fact that I could afford to go and pursue getting diagnosed, because it's not cheap. It's a pricey exercise and it takes time. I'm also, I'm a white middle class woman, and I could get access to what I wanted. And that is not true at many points of intersectionality. There's a lot of people who find it far more difficult to pursue a diagnosis. And it's the time, it's the access, it's the cost, it's the stigma, because ADHD can still carry a significant amount of stigma with it. Again, my privileged position in the world protects me a lot from that. But not for everybody. There's a lot of people who don't want to disclose because there are assumptions made about, oh, so you've got ADHD. Oh, well, you're a bit, and then fill in the gap after that. There is stereotypes, etc. Now, I've always been one to talk about things. I absolutely believe that when we share our stories, we can sweeten and shorten the journey for others. I know for sure, for example, when I was battling with alcohol addiction, my perspective of what an alcoholic was the old man on the park bench in the overcoat with the brown paper bag. That was an alcoholic. It couldn't have been, a fairly sort of sensible woman with a couple of kids and her own business in the suburbs. Like, it couldn't be. But yes, it is. It comes in all shapes and sizes. And if I had heard stories of people who looked and felt like me, I may have found my way out of that maze earlier. So I talk about that because it's incredibly important to strip away the shame. Strip away the shame. And I think without having the conversations, Brené Brown said it so well, the difference between guilt and shame. And this is when we don't have the information about ADHD, then we go from feeling as though we've done something wrong to that we are wrong. There's something fundamentally flawed about us, which is that self-worth wound. I'm very into, self-worth. I think it's just a huge, huge part of life.
Current society also try to kind of introduce within us in our daily life, whatever in general, this sense of not be worthy.
I agree. It can definitely happen, and that's where one of the things that I think is true of many of the women that I work with and friends in my area of the world as well, is resilience is a natural part, is a far more natural part of people who have had to overcome things. Like, I'm really interested to know, not like what you're interested in, what you like to eat, what you like to read. I want to know where have you overcome? What have you got through? What's helped you become the person you are today? Because I'm not who I am in spite of my past. I'm who I am because of my past.
Yes.
And there is so much, like, I call it your
such a
journey
huge
board.
difference. Thank you so much, Angela.
Yeah. And so that resilience piece is incredibly important. And that's actually something that ADHDers have in spades. It's interesting to note that first responders, so people who like go running into burning buildings as opposed to running away from them, the percentage of people who are ADHDers in those roles is far higher than the neurotypical population. I'm not saying that makes us heroic, but it's just coincidentally that we are usually pretty darn good in a crisis, because all the dopamine is firing and we are clear and we are focused and we are there.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Fascinating. And it's the same as if you are an ADHD, you are 300% more likely to start your own business than a neurotypical brain. Though, what is typical? We're all very different. But that's a reality as well.
Angela, you talk about the gap between capability and achievement. Why do so many brilliant women, because you were just talking about this, stay trapped in that perpetual potential?
Yeah, I saw it so often. I called it perpetual potential. There's layers to this, right? Part of it is you have to look at what potential actually is, because so many of the women that I support have incredibly high expectations of themselves, really high, and so they feel as though their potential is not realized. So one of the first conversations is about, could we lower the expectations slightly? Because you listen to the goals and the way that people speak to themselves, and it can be quite scary. But from an ADHD's perspective, I see that the most telling pieces that keep us in that feeling of perpetual potential is that we have our eyes outwards and we're looking at what everyone else is doing, and we are doing the comparison thing.
I agree. Yeah, unfortunately.
And I call it goal smuggling, right? So you've just gone and smuggled somebody else's goals into your world without actually going, I want that, without actually checking in and saying, does this actually suit the chapter of life that I'm in? Does this actually look as though it's something that's going to be sustainable? So the first thing is to make sure that you have the right goals for you. And the goals you had 5 years ago are not necessarily the same as are going to fit you now. So there's that, and there's also that self-perception about being able to acknowledge what you've done well. I often talk about the women have Teflon for the good and Velcro for the bad. We tend to ignore it. We just like, okay, done, and on to the next thing. Our appreciation for what we've actually achieved doesn't seem to land in the same way. I keep looking over here because one of the things that I diagnose and prescribe rather for women is what I call a fabulous file. So a fabulous file is physical, visible evidence of your fabulosity. So I've got I've got a double A3 corkboard sitting on my desk, leaning against the wall. And on there is screenshots of feedback. There are cards that clients have sent me and my kids. There's a photo of my book when it first was in the bookshop. It's just covered in stuff. My first podcast episode, there's a picture of it. It's covered in stuff that reminds me when I'm having one of those days where I think I suck and what's the point, and maybe I should just, forget this. And then I pause and I go and roll around in the fabulous file for a while and then go, okay, I'm okay. I'm doing okay here. And the third piece is business fit, because whether or not we know we're sparky brained or have an official diagnosis, we quite often have adopted business approaches, the model, the service suite, the marketing style that we see as like what should happen, the way it should be done. And it doesn't fit us. It's like literally like trying to squeeze into something that's 5 sizes too small, or flopping around in something that's 3 sizes too big, or is the wrong color, or whatever. And so it's pausing and going, maybe if I played to my strengths, maybe if I took the things that this sparky brain is damn good at and wrapped my business and my marketing around that, instead of this thing that I think I need to do, I reckon that gap might close. And it does. It really does.
Angela, you have early on, you have talked about your sobriety journey, right? I was wondering, how did undiagnosed ADHD feed into that struggle early on?
Yeah. I had no idea they were related. No idea at all. It was the lovely therapist that I was working with that actually pointed it out to me. There is no doubt, I mentioned about the bullying thing, and there is no doubt that substances can be very, very effective in the moment of minimizing pain, of turning off that nasty voice that can be inside your head. So that was the first role it did for me. I didn't fit, I didn't belong, but when I had a few drinks, I didn't care. And so it allowed me to try and fit, not belong, because that's a very different thing, but to fit. And that was what I needed. But unfortunately, when you try and fix an inside problem with an outside solution, it doesn't work. It does not work long term. And unfortunately, my particular wiring was pretty susceptible to it, which is why it became a problem over many years. It built up to a point. It also, I have the sort of brain, which a lot of us have, that does not switch off. Medication helps it switch off. That was amazing when I first took that and realized, oh, this is how a brain can actually feel. Oh my God. This is what I've been missing all these years. But so it can often be used to by ADHDers to switch off that brain, because alcohol, that was my drug of choice, is a depressant. So it actually slows things down. So that can be a reason why people use it. There's also a lot about impulsivity and that inability to just say no. It's really hard because we don't have again, I should only speak to me, not to the world. I don't have an off switch. I'm all on or all off. Like I'm either I have two speeds, like full pace or asleep. There isn't a lot in the gray area. And so, as they say in the recovery world, one drink is not enough and too much at the same time, because the enjoyment, I would keep going, trying to hold on to that, thinking I could keep that enjoyment where you can't. It's going to wear off. So there's lots of, I understand now, the sparkiness that would feed it, as well as, unfortunately, a family propensity, which I did not know. I wasn't told. And now I've found out in later years how many people in my extended family had problems with alcohol. So there's a genetic component as well.
What did actually happen, when you truly decided to just stop drinking?
Well, I couldn't. I mean, that was the thing that I discovered. I was horrified to recognize that it was starting to take a toll, and it was getting in the way of enjoying life. And so, well, I really should stop. And I tried many things. I was what was it sounds like a really interesting compliment, a high functioning alcoholic. And I don't have a problem with using that word, because I was still getting through that resilience, that determination, and that stubbornness, which is very much part of my character, but it wasn't feeling good. And then I had small children by this stage, and obviously I didn't want to have that sort of example, but I kept it very hidden behind closed doors, like a lot of women do. When I discovered that I could not stop of my own accord, that's when the panic set in. It was like, in the recovery world, we talk about you go over the thin red line and there isn't any going back. Some people can get a shock, make a decision and just stop. I unfortunately was not one of them. So my recovery journey was very simple. I went into a public detox for 5 days because we couldn't afford rehab. I actually had rehab envy for years because I wanted to go somewhere swanky for 3 or 4 weeks. I'd watch the movies. I knew what it was like. Then back then, like 20 years ago, there wasn't anywhere near the options that there are today. Thank God there is so much more options and there are many more people talking about it, but there was nothing back then. It was really hush-hush, so much shame. But I went into AA and I honestly was concerned because I thought I was going to walk through the door and someone was going to shove a Bible down my throat. Not that I am anti-religion, but it wasn't a part of my world. But I discovered that was not the case. And there I found community. There I found support. And I, being a bit of an A-type personality, threw myself into the recommended program, which is the 12 steps. And I'm one of the lucky ones because it worked. It worked. And for a very long time, I refused to say, I used to no, it's just the program. It's not me, because that's true. But then I realized that I was the one who had to work the program. So yes, I played a big role in my recovery as well. And again, privilege, a husband who supported me, understood that I was not, this is how I describe it, I was not a bad person who had to get good. I was a sick person who had to get well, because alcoholism is an illness. Addiction is an illness. There are so many pieces that run into it. The last thing that we need when we are battling to stop doing something that has been, like alcohol for me was there when I celebrated. It was there when I was sad. It was there when I was angry. It was there all the time. And to suddenly lose that armor it was terrifying, to actually have to feel all the emotions. And that's when I had to do a lot of trauma work with like a therapist and that, and to add shame into that mix and to be seen as an appalling human being, that's not going to help. That's not going to help. I mean, addicts, we can do some pretty shitty things. There's no doubt about it. But I didn't grow up going, what do I want to be when I grow up? I'd like to be an alcoholic, and I'd like to become irresponsible, and I'd like no one aims for that. So if it happens, if it's part of your story, being able to reach out for help without massive amounts of shame is vital. And that's why I'm so delighted that there is so much more conversation about the topic in the world today.
Yeah, I know.
So much more. It's really important.
If someone hearing you today talking about this addiction in general, again, it might be different type of addiction, but still addiction as such, what would you say to those people that they are struggling? Like really one important thing that you would say to a person that might go through a situation similar as yours?
In the simplest form, assuming that you have this in your world, it's talk to somebody that you trust and that loves you and say, I have a problem and I need help. Can you help me get that help? Because it's a rare person will go, no, screw you, sort it out for yourself. No, like there'll be someone that's going to help. And really hear what I said before. You are not a bad person who needs to get good. You are a person with an illness who deserves to get well. That's the key. I think that is the key piece. That is absolutely the key piece. And you can do it. You can do it. You can't do it alone. You cannot do it alone.
Angela, what is the hardest part of unlearning who you thought you should be in order to embrace and become who you actually are?
Curiosity again. I think that is key. That is key. Trying to suspend the judgment. Like you would have heard the expression often, respond rather than react. So there are so many beliefs and stories that I hold in my head, which have got to do with the way I was brought up and, the part of the world, the type of parent. There is so much that we are conditioned into. And so it's trying to hit the pause button on that and go, how might it be different? What if all those things weren't actually true? If I strip them away and just approach this with some curiosity, how does that feel? That was really useful for me to see it like that. And to try, there's another expression that is a big part of my world. I think I invented this word years ago, kindsight. Okay, so kindsight is compassionate reflection. Okay, and so looking back with kindsight and understanding why certain things happened in certain ways, and now I've got some extra self-knowledge to help explain it. It's being kind to yourself. Because if I rip strips off myself, that's not helpful. I am the person who is always with me, always. And so I deserve the self-compassion that I would extend to anybody else. And so having that lens of curiosity and kindness as I begin to explore what it means to be a woman in her 50s running a business who suddenly found out that there's a lot of extra sparkiness going on in there, and deciding what to do with that information from here on in, those two pieces, curiosity and kindness, have to be the way to go.
We were talking about this theme about the fact that women nowadays don't just have imposter syndrome, they have that self-worth wound inside, What is the core difference from your perspective?
Imposter syndrome is more situational. So it's like you're about to turn up on this podcast and it's like, who am I to talk to Mirela on this podcast? And all these people like, who am I? Like, that's imposter syndrome. There's people that are far more qualified and like, oh, I'm gonna, wig out of this one. That's imposter syndrome. Where the self-worth wound runs far deeper than that. Okay, it is this. Imagine it's like a fault line that runs through the territory of you. So it's not that in this situation I'm an imposter, it's in all situations I am not enough. And it rumbles along under the surface and impacts the way that you see things, the opportunities that you might put your hand up for, the way that you're going to show up, the prices that you might charge if you happen to be in business. It impacts so many things. And I did not know until, again, using hindsight, looking back, with so many of the women, because I've had my own business since 2003, and I noticed that this self-belief, this lack of self-belief ran through women in business like a wildfire. It was just, and I write about it in my book, how much it kept showing up.
By the way, I still have it, even me, even myself. So just, people, you are not wrong. It's just part of being human.
It's part of who we are. And I realized that retrospectively now, understanding the way that things work, a lot of the women that I was working with were sparky. By sparky, I mean undiagnosed ADHD. I can see the similarities. We tend to flock together.
Wow.
And that self-belief problem, which, and I'll call it a problem because it does get in the way, that is common, like it's not unusual, but the depth of it, the impact of it, the sharpness of it seems to be so much deeper, stronger, and meaner in a neurodivergent person. And there is actually, even though it's not in the official criteria, emotional dysregulation and rejection sensitivity dysphoria, where you feel everything so much deeper and harder, is a part of our experience. So it is not surprising that this feeling of not measuring up and self-doubt, and ergo the self-worth wound, is so much stronger in us because we've tried for so long to fit in and have been told, could you be less loud? Could you be less crazy? Could you slow down? Could you speak more slowly? Could you? And that like chips away. So it's not surprising that the wound is deepened in us.
How do you help a leader navigate the extreme swings, because we are talking about this, between total certainty and deep self-doubt?
Well, I think the first thing is normalizing it. As you said, we've all got it. This is a part of the human experience. Comparison is a part of the human experience. We can't help it. But there is a difference between, who was it that said, between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom. Viktor Frankl. It's a similar sort of thing, because we can react to something and have an automatic thought, but then we can pause and we can then choose to respond instead. So in terms of how do you help, for me, a big part of this is, it's a specific skill that I call catch and detach. Okay, so catching a thought and detaching from it before it, like alien-like, is all over your face. And there's some simple things that you can do to help with this. It's not a simple solve, but there are some simple steps. So one of them is externalizing that internal voice. You know, the one that goes stupid, stupid, stupid when something goes wrong. So give her a name. So I've given my inner critic a name. Her name is Helga. Sorry if anyone listening, horrible Helga in high heels is what I called her for long, because she tried to trample all over my dreams. Now, the good news is that inner critics only show up when the work is important, when it's something that you care about, when you want to do well because you give a damn. People who don't care and are just in it for the money or whatever, not that I don't like money. Money is important. We create value. We should be well compensated. But she shows up when I'm near a growth edge, because her job is to protect me. It's not for me not to take risks, for me not to go out and hang over the ledge because I might fall. Yeah, okay, Helga, thanks. But I've got this. I don't fight her any longer. I used to try and fight her as she's throwing those emotional hand grenades at me. But now I can see that she's just a thought. She's putting thoughts towards me. That doesn't make them real. doesn't make them real. If you think about it, we are so quick to believe a negative thought. But what about if we use skylight thinking instead? And we thought, well, what if this worked? Or what if this possibility came to pass? Or what if I worked this out? As opposed to, I'll never work this out. This is never going to work. I suck. Like, you can feel yourself constrained. So catching the thought, detaching from Helga, and reframing with a different story. And I really recommend finding a photo of her. Like, I've got this photo. I just Googled
Really?
it. I found, cranky looking, person, like, and the photo is really quite cool. She's
That's
literally
so
got glasses
interesting.
like this, and she's going like this, this real character, and that's Helga. So now I see her in my head as a part, but not the biggest part of me. So that is catch and detach is one of the skills, a self-leadership skill that you can practice. Get a fabulous file. You need a fabulous file. That's another part. Take care of the Holtz, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, sad. Take good care of yourself in that respect. There's a whole self-leadership framework that's on my website, and there's an assessment that you can take that gives you a heck of a lot of ideas on how to tackle this. Or come and work with me and I'll help you.
Each one of us, nobody excluded, have the possibility and the opportunity, most of all, to choose them and then choose another negative, but the positive. So just start.
In every scenario, we have that choice. Now, I'm not advocating for toxic positivity. Oh, my leg's being cut off. That's okay. I've got another leg.
It's a lie. It's a lie. Absolutely.
Yeah. Not that. And it's about not trying to suppress those emotions. As I said, at the beginning when we were talking, all emotions have a job. That they're telling us something. I'm not going to try and pretend that this thing has happened and it hurts or it's hard. I'm acknowledging that. And I'm also asking, how can I resource myself? A little tiny extra tip that I found really helpful, and I prescribe to lots of people. We've all heard of gratitude lists. I'm grateful for this and I'm grateful for that.
Yes.
And they are brilliant. It was incredibly important when I was first in the recovery movement because, things were pretty tough. The gratitude practice helped me filter for the good. It helped me deliberately find the good because I was definitely not feeling very happy about the world. So it was very useful. But the tip is to add to that and what I'm proud of today. Okay? So catch those, what I'm proud of today, and keep them just like you do a gratitude journal. Just add that at the bottom or just notice it because they will be a cumulative impact over time.
Yeah.
And, sometimes in Australia, we have an expression called the tall poppy syndrome, like don't put your head up. In New Zealand, where I was born, it was like, don't get too big for your boots. You think you're so shit hot, excuse me. And so there is a reticence to go, I did well. There's a reticence. But in your own world, I think that reticence sucks, by the way, but in your own world, notice it and note it. So you can catch and detach from the negative thoughts, but catch and hold on to that evidence because you've got a lot of it. If you start looking for it,
that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Healthy anger, it's very good, guys. It's not that you wouldn't feel like the anger anymore. It's not about that. It's about transcending, it's true, but it's a really long process. So it is a process. Healthy anger helps you a lot. Don't think that you will not be angry anymore, or you will not say
that's not realistic.
No, it is not at all, like literally. So use even that healthy anger, feel it, accept it. It's not that you don't have, like, pretending that you don't have those feelings. It's not about that, guys.
It's not realistic.
Yeah,
that whole word emotion, it's got the word motion in it. Like they need to move through you. Like they only get stuck when you try and push them down. Have you seen that game where the little gophers come up and you have to whack them on the head? And then another one pops up over there and you whack it. It's like it's sideshows and that. That's what happens if you try and push an emotion down and pretend it doesn't exist. It's gonna come up somewhere else and bite you.
Trust me, it does. Yeah, one way or another, it'll be there. Like, trust me, literally, 100%. Yeah. What is the projected protection, and how does over delivering quietly drain a founder's business?
This is another one, and again, so many of these now because I'm looking through the lens of the ADHD because I'm really interested to see how it impacts in business. And so how it shows up here is this over delivery. because we are protecting ourselves, or we believe we are protecting ourselves by over delivering, by doing more than we really need to, because we want the approval. We're protecting ourselves from criticism, because we've had so much criticism throughout our life, either overtly or a little bit sort of nudge wink, is get a load of her, she's a bit weird. So much disapproval. And so I see it, quite a few clients we've talked about, what were you like at school? Like, oh, well, I was like the teacher's pet. I went for it. I worked really hard. I was like, swan up here, but underneath paddling like a duck. And we learned that we would get great feedback when we overdid things, when we got the A's. Our parents said it was great. That's where we got the approval. And that often gets carried through into our businesses. So we want to make sure that this client loves us, will refer to us, won't find anything wrong with what we are doing as a service. And so we will overgive. And that is projecting that it's going to give us protection. And if you, I wrote a blog a while ago talking about B+ work. Because if we look at the typical, and I've seen the back ends of so many businesses, what women are delivering is like A triple+. Now, I'm not suggesting just deliver crappy work. No, not suggesting that at all. But what I am suggesting is just pull back a little bit, because we definitely, just in the way that we set higher expectations for ourselves than we would for anyone else, we set higher expectations in what we must deliver, way beyond what the client was even expecting. And that takes so much time when you actually do the calculation and look at, what am I being paid for this? Now, if I actually divide it by the number of hours I've put into it beyond what I originally thought, oh, look at that. My average rate is down to $27 an hour. It's not quite what I was after. So it can really show up in that way. And that's hard to see yourself, really hard to see yourself.
Why do standard, highly acclaimed businesses, productivity models fail neurodivergent brain so consistently? Because I also noticed this particular fact that the high level businesses are not quite, how do I say, how to navigate in this area with people that they are neurodivergent.
Well, I think this is a big question, right? But overall, the way that I see it is that it's like trying to borrow somebody else's uniform and assume it's going to fit you. And I've always been wary of what I call the jackpot effect, because we've seen a lot of those celebrity entrepreneurs selling methodologies, and they've got a heck of a lot of positive feedback. Yes, they have, because a lot of those people that are giving the great feedback probably would have been successful without the entrepreneur. They've got the talent. There's that right place, right time, right combination, and they happen to use this system, and it worked for them. But for every person you see that tells the great story, there is 200 who it didn't work for, because it's a system, it's a formula, and it's not taking into account anything about the individual. And there's certain things about a neurodivergent brain that will never fit into, and again, not all neurodivergent brains, but can never fit into those formulas. Just one example, I have tried forever to have consistent content creation. Just do a monthly calendar, batch all the stuff that you're going to talk about, decide on one theme for the month and only post about that. Yeah, right. No. I don't know how many times I've tried that. My brain will not work that way. And if I see evidence that this system's working for everybody else and it's not working for me, then who do I think I blame? Who am I likely to blame? Not the system. Boom, I'll blame me again. So you've got the second arrow, and the first arrow is the system ain't working, and the second arrow is so I must suck. And so that spirals you down further. We have to take ideas from other people's systems, for sure. Take an idea, but don't assume that just carte blanche is going to work for you. We need to know, what are your strengths? What are your preferences? How do you best show up? When is your energy at its height? There are so many other pieces. So we need to change the fit for us and not just take it off the shelf and assume it's going to work, no matter how much you see it in the social media of all these successful people. That's PR done well.
Ooh,
you need to find the fit for you.
Why does putting oneself out there publicly feels so inherently risky for a late diagnosed entrepreneur, Angela?
Look, again, it's one of those things that it's not just us, okay? Because I think many people find it, a bit scary to put themselves out there. We've all heard about the trolls, but if we get the trolls, great. That means we're having an impact. But why is it scary? It comes back to that doubting self again. Because do I have the right opinion? Will it be approved of by the right people? You know, I've this was actually in a very good friend and colleague and I run a mastermind together, and we were having a group call a couple of weeks ago, and one of our lovely Sparky members was talking about how much time gets sucked up by posting on LinkedIn. Like she's overthinking and re-editing and like la 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 la. Now she does have a background which puts her in that field, because a background where
But this doesn't remove the fact that you have to spend really a lot of time, even though you're a professional.
So what we settled on was the idea of the post-it note. Okay, just put a post-it note on LinkedIn, not a dissertation. Okay, because if we keep going back to reiterate it because we're afraid of how it's going to be seen and perceived, we'll spend hours. Because our job is, the way I like to describe this, so use a post-it note, it's the first one, but it's the rule of thirds. So I want anyone to imagine that they're in Times Square and there's a big billboard. Okay? And on that billboard, you've put what you believe in, what you stand for, what you want for your clients, your perspective on the world. And a third of the world comes through and looks at it and goes, that's complete garbage. Who does she think she is? That's fine. Let them go. There's another billboard around the corner for them. Then the next third comes along and they read your message and they go, yeah, fine, doesn't do it for me, but all power, go for it. They're fine, let them go. There's another billboard around the corner for them. But the next third will come around and they'll go, oh my God, yes. How do I get in touch with this woman? See, we think too often that we've got to convince and convert the other 2/3. No, we don't. They're not for us and never were.
Thank you.
Our job is to communicate what we stand for, what we believe in. And the people who resonate with it, they'll come towards you. And the people who don't resonate, they'll go away.
I always say about myself or what I do, that I am the antenna and the signal goes to the right people. It will arrive to the right people no matter what. So I don't have to sell myself like everyone in that sense, as you just explained it with your example. Angela, to just be accepted or be considered as a professional. I have my values. I have my worth. And I know very well what are my skills and what I'm capable of. I don't need validation, even the professional side of it, from random people. I mean, it's like I would appreciate it. Thank you. Don't misunderstand me. But it's just beyond that. That's what I'm trying to say.
And I reckon there's another piece to this. I heard it from Brené Brown once. I'm Brené Brown fangirl. And she said, the people whose opinion really counts, the ones that are really important to you, they'll fit on a post-it note. There's a post-it note again. And that is good. This is one to add to it. So get a post-it note and write on that the people whose opinions really matter to you.
Yeah.
And you'll find there isn't that many. There isn't that many.
So why struggling? Like that's the whole point.
Yeah. So we are fearful that we're going to be judged. But at the end of the day, which sounds like a cliche, think about how often do you judge someone's social media post? Do you really have an apoplexy about it and go and tell the world? I mean, there are some in the manosphere that, yes, will judge them very harshly, but generally our fears are not realistic. But what is fearful, what is scary, is that the potential for other people's opinions to pull you back from speaking the truth, that if another person found it, would be so relieved. That's the scary part, if they don't get the opportunity to connect with you because you are afraid of that judgment. It's not that risky. You're not going onto a battlefield in the real sense. The fear is real, but soothe yourself. Use that self-compassion. Use that kindness. Use that reassurance. Then write a post-it note and stick it on the internet and see what happens.
Tend to blame ourselves and be ashamed of something that it doesn't even exist. That's the whole thing. That's the whole point, right? So it's just in our mind creation. So the point is that I'm always asking these questions to my clients. Like, do you treat random people, or even a dear friend, or even your mother or father, in the way that you treat yourself? And the answer, trust me, it's always no.
No.
So badly ourselves, and we forgot to treat like with compassion, as just said, and with respect and self-worth, like towards us, first of all, and do it quite the opposite. Not okay.
We need to be a safe harbor for ourselves. We need
Yes.
to know that if we try something, if we put ourselves out there, we try a new skill, whatever, and it doesn't work, that we're not going to go "Ugh," and turn into Helga against ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to be that safe harbor to fall back to and go, that's okay. You
That's
gave it a go. Freaking excellent. Like now try again. Now try again. So if we are that safe harbor for ourselves, then our chances, so our tendency to take more chances, to try putting ourselves out there, the probability increases enormously
I
because
agree.
you're not going to tear strips off yourself.
Yes, definitely. Angela, you treat vitality as a strategic business resource. How do you catch the hyperfocus crash before it leads to burnout?
God, I wish I knew.
Well, it's just a question, so you
I gotta
just
be honest. I gotta be honest. I don't catch the hyperfocus ones that often. It's normally retrospectively that I notice them. That is not something that I've managed to tame as much as I would like. But that's okay. I'm okay with that one. Safe harbor. But vitality as a business strength, it's one of the pieces of the self leadership framework, vitality cultivation, because you can have all the knowledge, all the care, all the intention, all of the vision and the ambition. But if there's no fuel in the tank, then you're screwed. It's not going to happen. So this is not rocket science. You know, this is about getting the sleep. It's about getting the food. But more importantly, it's about noticing what is it that fuels you, because obviously we both need to eat. Obviously, we both need to drink and sleep and all that sort of stuff. But there's
Mhm.
other things that fuel you. And so noticing that, like for me, it's being in nature. I grew up on a little farm in New Zealand. And
Wow.
so, yeah, and it's a beautiful way to grow up. And so one of the ways in which I have the resonance between that fuels me and my business is when I do retreats and when I run workshops for the mastermind. We don't go to five-star hotels in the city. We get the hell out of the city and we go down to a place called Kangaroo Valley, which is a gorgeous little tiny town with rolling hills and kangaroos. And so that's one example, because when I'm in that situation, it fuels me. I love working with groups and that fuels me. So I ran 2 workshops, Sunday and Monday. I was tired, but I was not drained. So there's a difference between being tired and drained. So it's really important to
Agree.
notice that. Yeah. So it's an individual recipe, but it starts with noticing, looking back, and even during a week, taking a little bit of an audit and just noticing. I just got off, or look at your diary, and you look at your diary and you think about, and you watch yourself. Oh, I'm going to talk to that client. Yay, love it. Oh, I'm going to talk to that client. Like you notice, just looking at your diary, it gives you indication straight away about what is going to feed your vitality and what's going to drain the life out of it. Notice those things, and then do something about it. Make some changes, make some choices as much as you've got control over.
Yeah. How can a founder transform decades of feeling, that classic or powerful thoughts, too much or not enough, into their sharpest competitive advantage?
Gradually. This is not a magic wand. Okay, it
Yeah,
is not a magic wand. There
yeah,
isn't a silver bullet. I can't go, well, here's the 3 steps to. It takes time, but it's gotta start with self-knowledge. Like, and that's different from self-awareness. Okay, self-awareness is this moment to moment, how am I
yeah.
feeling, how am I reacting, etc. Self-knowledge is the deeper side. So it is about really understanding where your spark, like I do a thing called the spark advantage profile. It's understanding what is your spark zone. Like where is it when you do have energy? When you look at the feedback that you've got from clients. I absolutely guarantee if you do a testimonial treasure hunt, you will find some threads that run through them as to when you're at your best, what your clients are getting from you. Do a strengths profile. and find out what are your core strengths. And because when a strength is something that you're good at, you do often, and it invigorates you, and weave those more into your business. This is about the business fit piece. Give yourself permission to get rid of the crap that strains and drains you that you thought you should be doing, and bring in more, weave in more of the things that naturally make the most of who you are. Like, one of my key strengths is ideation, and it's very much an ADHD thing. It's that ability to connect the dots and to see the gaps and to notice the opportunities. And so I love working intensely with one person in a workshop environment where we pull the whole business apart and put it back together again in a day, as opposed to a drawn out 6-month affair, because I am much better in the moment. That's a strength. And so that, when you start to pull that self-knowledge and give yourself permission to design the business, to reshape it so that it is a better fit for you, and you get better results as a result of that, that gradually starts to change the way that you see things. And those other tips, be aware of your Helga. Write down what you're proud of today. Like, there's pieces, it's like a mosaic, as opposed to, here you go, here's the thing that fixes you.
Yeah. It's not a quick fix. Let's make sure, like as such. Again,
And this, I do want to put a little asterisk there, Mirela, because this isn't about ignoring the market entirely and just doing it my way,
yeah, exactly. Please specify that as well. Yeah.
It's got to be in concert with the market, but you can meet a need in the market in different ways. And what I'm suggesting is that it'll be more sustainable and profitable and enjoyable if you meet the market in your strengths, rather than squished into a shape that you think you should meet the market in, because that's not sustainable and it's not fun.
I completely agree with you. 100%. What does a business look like when it's generally built around someone's natural cognitive wiring at this point, Angela?
Well, that's really a continuation of what we just spoke of. It doesn't look that different from the outside. Now, I don't think you can open a couple of websites and go, ooh, maybe you could with the amount of colors that they've used. My husband says my website's a riot. He couldn't handle all the colors. I love it. I like lots of vibrancy. So it's not so much that you can tell by looking at the outside. It's really an inside job. It's an inside job as to how is this put together differently. So I don't think there are clear signs, because it's personal choices that you've made. I mean, you can usually you quite often tell a sparky person. In the wild, we tend to be attracted towards each other. Birds of a feather flock together and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's where a person is enjoying. I think it's the main thing you'll see is the enthusiasm. Someone showing up with energy and enthusiasm because they are in the zone and they're loving what they do. And that's contagious. That's very attractive.
It defines self-leadership when things aren't going according to your initial plan, because of course, obviously, most of the time might actually change. And that's what might happen. So
that's very much like, I know I'm coming back to things because there's a lot of things that are woven together here, but it is that safe harbor. It is that, let's have a look. Are we being realistic about the goals that we did set? It is the, how very human of me. Things don't always go according to plan. You could be practicing all 5 pieces of the self-leadership framework, which is self-knowledge and emotional dexterity and flexible thinking and intentional action and vitality cultivation. You can tick all the boxes and it can still go wrong, because there's no guarantees. There isn't any guarantees. That everything is, I like to look upon business as from a scientific perspective. You need to experiment and see what works and what doesn't.
And then uncertainty, this keyword, life, it is uncertainty also. It's part of it. So you just have to embrace it, accept it, that it is also part of it. So
you do. And know that I mean, it's a classic expression, this too will pass. This too will pass, because it does. It goes up and down. If you want a nice straight steady line, don't have your own business. That's all I can say.
Can we connect also the book that you wrote in regards to this? And because I mean, it might be that other people would be interested to read your book, because I think it's quite impressive. Yeah.
Well, again, knowing that this was me, what am I proud of? Like, I actually wrote a book when how did I stay focused for long enough? But your next chapter, ditch your doubt, own your worth, and build the business and life you really want. I wrote it in 2020. When that was my COVID project. I wasn't any good at baking sourdough, so I went for a book instead. And then I went back earlier this year because now that I had the different lens, I could see with hindsight why so many of the things that I was talking about happened. And that was because of the sparky lens. So I've re-edited the book to look through that lens and explain some of the things
Really?
that so there's a whole the first section now has changed significantly, and it is I'm just getting to it. Through a New Lens is what I call the preface. And it talks about when I first wrote this book during the COVID lockdown, I had no idea I had ADHD. And it talks about that and it contextualizes the experience. So, yeah, I feel really
So
good about it.
they can find, they can also, is it included also kind of tools so that they might help them somehow, some way in that sense?
Yes, absolutely. What it's got a lot of detail on my website under the navigation of book, which seems appropriate. So there is lots of some of my older methodologies because I did write it in 2020, but it's been overlaid with some of these new perspectives that have the sparky angle on them. So yes, it's a business book, but it is woven in with personal experiences because we're not silos, especially if we're a solo or a micro business owner. Who we are and what we do can't be kept apart.
I agree. Thank you for mentioning this. I keep repeating, and also using other type of sentences to like keep going there because I think people has to be reminded this really important, powerful sentence. Exactly, they are not separate; they are part of it. They're like all together. So yeah.
Yeah, there is an asterisk there as well because one mistake I see a lot of us make is that we mistake our value for our worth. Okay,
Yeah.
so I do not believe at all in the statement charge what you're worth because like how could you? How could you possibly charge this crush this extremely expansive experience delightful person into your price tag? You can't do that. So the distinction is charge for the value you create, but your worth never changes. That's a birthright. So I'm really quite vigilant about making that distinction. I think it's really,
Yeah,
really
I think
important.
it's very important as well. Absolutely, I completely agree with you because I also hear it very often used and misused by so many people who actually are not even like in the right position to do so. I'm not saying it's not a critique or side, so please people don't misunderstand me. It's just my personal point of view, and we
Yeah.
are here also for that. But I also believe that there are even too many persons out there that they are saying the wrong things and are leading towards wrong things to other people, and they are and therefore that means that they are misleaded like towards wrong path. So that's why I wanted to say thank you for mentioning that because I think it's quite important for people
Yeah,
to.
I really think it is. I mean, the core of because I talk about that in the book because it is about overcoming doubt, and it's very much about what I call the next chapter model of change because we quite often feel discontent, like discontent, not happy, Jan. What am I going to do about it? Not happy. What am I going to do about it? What do I want? So we can just keep going backwards and forwards and just stay stuck. We have to make a decision before we can move into change. And so the book is based around how you move through that change through the business lens. Because a lot of us aren't particularly delighted. I think many women in particular, we take what we did in corporate land and we turn it into a business. It's logical. But we change and our business needs to change with us. I had a marketing agency. I started just me at my desk and then it grew. And so I got an assistant and then it grew. So I got 3 casual contractors and it grew. And so I went to serviced offices and it grew and it kept growing. And that's good, isn't it? Like we want to get bigger, don't we? And then I found myself buying an office with full-time staff and doing all this work and was miserable as hell because that as we went up the ladder in size, all of our expenses got bigger. We had to get bigger clients to cover it. So the whole heart of the business changed. And it did not work for me, but it took me a long time to let go of it because I thought that was evidence that I couldn't cut it. It wasn't good enough to run it, and I was giving up. It wasn't true. It just didn't fit me. And so that's very much woven into the heart of the story. It was one of the reasons I wanted to write the book, because I don't want people to be stuck in a business that doesn't serve them as
And
much
give
as
them
they serve their
misery.
clients.
Let's put it like that. Give them
Oh.
misery.
Yeah. And we get worried about what everyone's going to think and say. They're not. Give yourself the freedom to change, to reshape the business so it fits you. That's what I think is incredibly important. No matter what you're wiring.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. It's always to that main core point that is the process or part of the package, guys. In life, it is a challenge. It is part of it, and it's take it as it is. It's literally called life. But you don't remember also to enjoy it. At least sometimes give that time, little time at least, to be also thankful and playful thankfulness. In that sense, close your eyes and just be in a really wonderful place there by being just thankful because you have that water. It is magnificent that actually turns away all the bad and negative energy. When you end the day, you just take a shower and be thankful that you have that water that cleans your body, and just be thankful.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. It sounds like, you and I are showering in similar ways, because I work from home, but I have this lovely little office, which is down in our backyard, which I adore. But I want to have that break between the work and home. And
Same
so
here.
I break it with a shower. That's what I do. Like, I shower and get changed and then become the home Angela. And I
Yeah.
know there's a thought that gets in my head so often, is that how freaking lucky am I to experience the luxury of hot showers? It's
Yeah.
only been in the last 70 years that these have even existed, and the majority of the people in the world don't get the opportunity to enjoy this in the way that I am. I know that sounds, again, a bit Pollyanna, but I seriously think it really often. I think it's one of the most simply luxurious parts of my day. I'm really grateful for my hot shower.
Yes,
And the body wash.
And promise one last question. If you please could leave a late diagnosed woman listening today with just one truth about her worth, because we were talking, this was actually the main topic, right? What will be?
Oh, you were never too much. You were never not enough. Like, they are the same through different lenses. You are a uniquely wired combination of experience and strengths and hopes and desires and vision and everything. And you are irreplaceable. Go get them.
That's so fantastic. I couldn't say better. Thank you so very much, Angela. I dearly appreciated your presence here to my podcast episode. It had been such a journey. Really, thank you.
You're welcome. I knew, as I said right at the beginning, it was going to be a juicy conversation. We've roamed all over the landscape, and it's been a delight. I really hope that there are things that we uncovered in this delightful conversation that just switch on a possibility. Open a door, build a little bridge for someone else to step forward into their next chapter, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah. If someone is interesting to reach out to you, Angela, how, where, and what is the best way to do that?
Well, the main spots for me is my website, which is just my name, that's pretty easy, just Angela Raspass. Strange spelling, but I'm sure you've got that. Oh, there you go. It's on the screen. So it's that, angelaraspass.com.au. That's easy. And exactly the same on LinkedIn. That tends to be my main playground. So come and connect with me over there as well. And if there's an interest in the book, I'm very, very happy to extend a discount, a special coupon for you guys. So when you go to checkout, if you just put in RISE, that would be the best word to use, then there'll be a 25% discount off the cost of the book, and we'll get a copy to you.
Perfect. Thank you again very much. Thank you, Angela.
You're welcome, and I appreciate the opportunity. It's always great to have a deep and engaged conversation with a lot of fun thrown in there as well.
Thank you.